This is Into Math for Second Grade, Module 18, Lesson 7. Measure to the nearest yard. I can estimate and measure length to the nearest yard. Please gather your workbook and a pencil and turn to page 458. We will start under Build Understanding. Sierra finds 3 sticks on the playground. Each stick is 12 inches long. Ronnie finds a stick on the playground. The stick matches the length of Sierra's 3 sticks put together. Part A asks us to place 3 12-inch rulers end to end on a large sheet of paper. So you may need to pause this video to go get 3 12-inch rulers and a large sheet of paper. So if you don't have these items, you can just follow along with me, or if you do, you can do this and just follow along and pause along the way. So here I have a large sheet of paper, and then I have taken 3 12-inch rulers, 1, 2, 3, and I've put them end to end, just like the directions say. Then I'm going to look at part B. Trace around the outside of the inch rulers to make one long ruler on the paper. So if we were to trace all the way around on the white paper, we would have one long ruler of paper. Part C asks us to place a yardstick on your paper next to your drawing. Is your drawing shorter than, the same size as, or longer than the yardstick? So right here is our yardstick. It is a very long ruler. And then we have the rulers that are 1, 2, 3 12-inch rulers. So what are you noticing when we look at the yardstick and the 3 12-inch rulers next to each other? We're noticing that they are the same length. So we can answer, they are the same length. Nice job. So we're learning what a yardstick is. And if we look over here at the connected vocabulary, a yardstick is the same length as 1 yard, or 3 feet. A yardstick is used to measure length in yard units. So right here is our yardstick, and we know that there was 1, 2, 3 of the 12-inch rulers, and that means that 1 yard is the same thing as 3 feet. Okay, let's take a look at part D. Estimate the length of Ronnie's stick in yards. So here was Sierra's stick, 3 12-inch long sticks. And then here's Ronnie's stick, just one big long yardstick. So we know that 1 yard is 3 feet, so that we can say Ronnie's stick is about 1 yard. All right, part E. Find an object in the classroom that is about as long as a yardstick. Draw the object. You might want to pause and look around your house for objects that would be the same length as a yardstick. If you're not able to do that, you can just follow along here with me. So here I have a bookshelf, and I'm taking the yardstick and I'm placing it to see the length at the top, and I'm noticing it's about a yard. So I'm going to use this as my object. And then I'm just going to draw that object in the box like they're asking us to. Great work. Let's take a look at the next page, page 459, under Build Understanding. Choose a wall in your classroom. How many yards is the length of the wall? So here we have the yardstick, and we also have 3 12-inch rulers lined up next to each other. There's 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so again, you might want to pause and try this on your own at home. You can pick a wall in your house and measure it with a yardstick, or you can just follow along with me, your choice. Okay, so here is this beautiful classroom art wall, and I have my yardstick right up at the top here. So I start at the side of the wall, and I make a little mark in blue to show where the yardstick ends. So then I'm going to pick up my yardstick and I'm going to move it over to start exactly where that blue line is. So I know I go to lay that down, and then I make another blue line exactly where the yardstick ends. And so I know that that's another yardstick. Now I take the yardstick and I move it over, line it up where I left off, and you'll notice I make another blue line right where the yardstick ends. And then I pick up the yardstick again. And when I pick it up, I notice that, oh boy, it's only measuring a tiny little bit for the yardstick. So that's not enough to count as a whole yardstick because there's just a tiny little bit there. Okay, so we can count that there was one from here to here, that's one yardstick. From here to here is another yardstick, and from here to here was another yardstick. And then we had this tiny little part here, but it wasn't a full yardstick. So we're going to say that that was 1, 2, 3, about 3 yardsticks. So we can answer that it's about 3 yards. Okay, now let's look at part B. If the length is not an exact number of yards, how do you measure to the nearest yard? So remember, ours was 3 exact with a little bit left over, right? So we had a little bit left over, but it wasn't a full yard. So we can answer that you only count the number of yards that you measured before the end of the wall. We didn't count anything left over. It had to be a full yard before you hit the end of the wall. Nice work. Let's take a look at the next part. Go to a whiteboard. How many yards is the length of the whiteboard? Part A asks us to measure the board in yards. So you may have a whiteboard at home and you can pause and try this part on your own, or you can just follow along with me. Here I have the whiteboard and my yardstick. So I start with putting the yardstick right at the end of the whiteboard, lining it up, laying it out, and then I'm going to make a little mark to show where the yardstick ends. Then I'm going to pick up my yardstick and move it over to where that blue line is to start that line, to start it again. And I notice, okay, it goes to about here. Then I'm going to pick up my yardstick again, and I'm going to line it up where the blue line is and go to the end. And I notice that, oh, the end is right here. So it's just a tiny little part of the yardstick. So we can say that this whiteboard is 1, 2 whole yards with a little bit, but we're not going to count this as a yard because it's not the whole yard. So we can answer that the whiteboard is 2 yards long. Nice work. Let's take a look at page 460 under Step It Out. Mrs. Garza sets up mats and rugs for indoor exercise. The mats and rugs are each 2 yards long. Now let's look at part A. Measure a mat or rug to the nearest yard. So you can pause this video and measure a mat or rug at your house with a yardstick, or you can follow along with me. Here I have a welcome mat and I have a yardstick. I am going to line up the yardstick at one end of the object or the mat, and then I'm going to count the yards to the other end of the object. So I have lined up my yardstick, and just like before, I'm going to make a little line here where the yardstick ends, and then I'm going to pick up my yardstick, and I'm going to move it over to the start line of where I stopped. And I noticed that it ends, my object, my mat, ends right about here. So I only have a tiny little part of the yardstick between those two lines. Part C asked me to find the number on the yardstick that is closest to the other end of the object. So here I have the number 2 on my yardstick for 2 inches, and that is really close to the beginning of the yardstick and not the end of the yardstick. So I only have 1 full yardstick and just a couple of inches here. So I'm going to answer, how long is the mat or the rug in yards? My mat is only 1 yard long. When I look at part E, could Mrs. Garza use your mat or rug? Explain. I remember that the mats she had were 2 yards long, and my mat was only 1 yard long. So I can answer, no, my rug is 1 yard, and Mrs. Garza uses rugs that are 2 yards long. Let's take a look at check understanding. Use a yardstick to measure a countertop. Part A asks us to find a countertop. Estimate the length in yards. So if you would like to pause and try this part on your own, you may do so, or you can follow along with me. Here's a picture of a kitchen countertop. I am going to estimate or make my best guess to find out how many yardsticks this might be. To me, it looks like it might be 3 yards. I'm going to write my estimate here, 3 yards. Part 2 asks us to use a yardstick to measure the countertop to the nearest yard. What is its length? So now we're ready to measure the countertop. I'm going to start at the end of the countertop. I lay the yardstick down and make a blue mark here to show where the yardstick ends. Then I'm going to pick up my yardstick and I'm going to move the yardstick to start where that blue line was drawn, and I measure another yard of the countertop. I make a new mark here to show where that yardstick measurement has stopped, and then I'm going to pick up my yardstick and I'm going to measure the last part of the countertop, and you'll notice I make a mark here where the countertop ends, but this is not a full yard, and it actually isn't even half of the yardstick. It's just a little bit of the yardstick. So we have 1, 2 yards and a little bit of a yardstick. So we can answer, the length of the countertop is 2 yards. Now we're ready for part 3. Is the countertop shorter than, the same length, or longer than your estimate? Now, you may have made a different estimate than mine, but I estimated 3 yards, and the actual measurement was 2 yards. So I can answer, the countertop is shorter than my estimate. Your answer may look different. Please remember you can always go back and rewatch this video and pause anytime as needed. Great job today.